What's up, guys? We're here today with Dr. Mark Morris, the handsome, educated, talented guy who's been doing my nutrition coaching for quite some time now. I know we've been getting a ton of questions on the channel about nutrition, and I felt like we should get somebody a little more qualified than myself to talk about it. That's not my realm of expertise, but it is Mark's realm of expertise. So today I think we're going to talk a little bit about weight cutting. That happens to be one of Mark's specialties and something he's helped me with numerous times now. So Mark, first off, I think one of the things that you talk a lot about is differentiation between long-term weight cutting and short-term weight cutting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think there's like some big picture principles that allow you to approach a weight class or get closer to a weight class. And I think a lot of people times like miss the point that we need to actually change their body composition, which typically talks about altering your level of muscle mass to fat mass and actually influencing the amount of tissue you have, as opposed to short-term strategies where you are already approaching the weight class and then can cut into it. Okay. And those are two different things. And what influences those two different things are going to be nutrition and then water balance and that type of thing. So two different things, and they need to be differentiated in order for us to be successful.
Okay, and obviously you probably want those things to sort of work in concert with one another to get you to where you're headed, right?
Absolutely, like in terms of like having a long-term plan and having some idea of what you actually need to do to approach the weight class and then what to do once you get there. And I think a lot of, in my experience with working with people and finding like where you should start to do these principles is important, because a lot of times with weight class boards, people will just do, we were talking about earlier, the laundry list of things that you could do to influence your body weight. And a lot of people do all of those regardless of where they are. Right. So it's very important to have kind of an idea, and that's what I have been able to outline in a few different resources, one of them being Way of the Weigh-In, which I think you've talked about on the channel before. Yep. Is that we don't need to do all of these things specifically depending on where you are, right? And I think some of the bigger picture things are, if you're not within 5% of a weight class, for our 2-hour weigh-ins, you shouldn't be cutting to that weight class. You're just too far out. Yeah. Absolutely. And then past that, the closer you get, and the less you need to do to actually make the weight class. So that's when we start to talk about the short-term variables, which are sodium manipulation and low fiber to actually get within the weight class, and only needing to do what is necessary to actually get into the weight class. And a lot of people don't do that. They'll just do everything because they've read some resources that outlines all of it, and they put it all in play, and then they end up coming in underweight and feeling like garbage because they don't typically do those things in their normal training or normal lives, right?
Right, so. Which I mean is obviously going to have a pretty significant negative impact on their performance.
Absolutely,
right?
For sure.
So you said 5% is your kind of rough rule of whether or not you should be cutting into a weight class.
For 2-hour weigh-ins, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're within 5% of your goal weight to make a weight class, then it's probably realistic to utilize some of these short-term strategies.
For sure.
And if not, maybe it's something you need to look at trying to cut over the long term and actually manipulate your body composition.
Right, which the big influencers of that are going to be a calorie balance, right? It's like the least sexy thing we can talk about, but you actually need to manipulate those things to actually change physical tissue on your body, right? In most cases, when we're talking about cutting down, we're talking about creating a calorie deficit to lose body fat, right? And within a certain ranges, you can do that without actually impacting your strength, which is what most of us are concerned with, right?
Absolutely.
So,
So in terms of those shorter term strategies, what are some of the ones that you would recommend, and what sort of ranges are the strategies maybe useful for?
The biggest thing, so when we're starting to talk about within that 5%, we could talk about things like timing your food earlier in the day, which would can almost impact your body weight by 1%, right? We're talking about when you wake up in the morning, you weigh less because no food or drink is going in, but you've been able to sweat and excrete and urinate, so your body weight is less, right? So timing your food earlier in the day can impact that process, along with things like obviously not the best for your overall health, but abstaining from vegetables or high volume food that contribute some fiber. Abstaining for that for a few days will allow you to have less actual physical weight in your gut during the time of the weigh-in, right? Which is going to be important. It's not contributing anything towards your performance. It's good for your overall health, but for a period of a couple days, you're able to actually not eat that and weigh in lighter, right? And that will contribute. The other thing would be sodium. Probably when we start to talk about actually manipulating your water balance, sodium will have have a lot to do with that, and just limiting like processed foods, that type of thing, anywhere between like less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day will allow people to drop a little bit of that extra water weight. And since we have a reservoir of that in our bones, it's not as impactful to our overall health as opposed to abstaining for water for a period of time is, right? Like there's cool case studies with like people can fast for over 300 days if they're very overweight, but as soon as they abstain for water for 3 to 4 days, like they will actually die, right? So there's
serious
things,
health issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's things that we can do that have less impact on our overall health, and sodium and fiber manipulation are going to be definitely some of those things that we should look at.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would say those are maybe more towards the extreme end of the spectrum, and look at things like timing your food. If you have less to lose?
Absolutely. So like in terms of like if you have a pretty good sense of what you typically eat throughout the day on a day-to-day basis, just taking that exact same amount of food and timing it earlier in the day will allow you to sweat out a little bit more and still have generally the same amount of calories and things that are going to impact your performance, but have you weigh in lighter the next day.
Right. And you kind of touched on something interesting there that was, one of my first exposures to thinking about cutting weight like that has been with working with you. But the idea of sweating out a certain amount of weight throughout the day, you kind of have a cool rule for that. What does that look like, and how does that run? I think you said
a cool rule.
Like 100 grams an hour or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Just by regular respiration and sweat, etc.
It depends on how much you actually sweat, right? If you know you're a heavy sweater, then we're gonna probably be higher than that. And I think in your case, we definitely saw that.
Am I a heavy sweater?
You're not an unheavy sweater. No, but I think you're upwards of like 150 grams. And I mean, you can get a little bit closer to this if you start to track these things and be quite vigilant without being like, too involved. But when we're talking about a high level athlete like yourself, we need to be quite on top of it. So anywhere without actually ingesting food or water, most people will lose around 100 grams an hour. So this becomes important when we start to talk about like if you have a later in the day weigh-in, a 5 p.m. weigh-in, to kind of give you a sense of like what you can do and can't do, right? So if you wake up and your weigh-in's in 3 hours and you're around 300 grams, there's a good chance you will be right on, right? Whereas a lot of people will see that and then freak out, start sweating, start spitting, that type of thing, and go way over, right? So it's something to keep in mind.
And do you notice a similar loss overnight as you would during the day, or is there a difference in like being less active, you'll lose a little bit less in 8 hours overnight than you would 8 hours in the day doing your sort of normal ADL?
It depends on the actual temperature, but if you do, if you're keeping like a pretty regular body temperature, you're probably going to lose a little bit less overnight. But a good way to do that is just kind of track for bed weigh-ins and then upon waking, and try to keep things consistent. We're really trying to be, since everyone is quite variable, we're trying to be as accurate as we can be to the individual. In an inaccurate setting, right? It's an inaccurate science because there's so many variables at play, right? Especially when we start to talk about people are manipulating multiple variables, right? As a scientist, you're kind of like, ugh, right? It's hard to actually track all those things. So you're just trying to be as accurate and vigilant as you can within your means.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I want to thank Mark here for being with us today, giving you guys a little bit of insight on what it takes to cut weight. If you're interested in learning more about Mark and the services he offers, he owns an awesome company called Polyhealth. Where can they find you and reach out to you there? Yeah, you can email me at mark@polyhealth.ca, and that's MARC, or just message me on Instagram, Mark W. Morris. And we did make mention of your ebook earlier. It's called The Way of the Weigh-In. You can find that at wayoftheweighin.com. I think I messed that up once before. It's not thewayoftheweighin.com. Right, it's just wayoftheweighin.com. If you just Google my name and that title, you'll find it. Awesome. Yeah, we can link that up too. Cool. Well, you guys have made it this far. If you liked the video, leave a like below. If you have any other questions that we can address with Mark, he and I actually get to see each other fairly often, so maybe we can get him back on the channel. Let us know in the comments below if you have any questions for Mark, and thanks for watching. Thanks, guys.